G'day and welcome, my name's Aaron. I thought today I would do a video on installing Librenms. Now Librenms is like Observian, it monitors network cards, computers, network stats, very much like Cacti except gives you way more utilities and features. However, as you can see with Librenms, the default installation has no Arch instructions. It's only got Ubuntu, Red Hat and Debian. So since I love running Arch, I thought I would give it a go installing it. So on the left I've got my real Arch computer, which I've just installed Arch as a minimal installation from the Arch ISO September 2020. It's running on a real hardware, it's a real computer, so it's got no desktop on it, it's purely just a terminal at the moment. So I'll be doing everything via the command line. If we go into the instructions, as you can see, they've got the instructions for Ubuntu and CentOS and Debian, but no Arch. The closest you'll get for Arch is if you go to CentOS, and I use Apache, not Nginx. You can see it's fairly similar for Arch. However, you have to change some things like the package manager, how you download the scripts, etc. The generic Linux commands are the same. However, these instructions will only get you so far. There's a bit more to do than what they have listed here to get it to work properly. So I've written a whole page on how to install it from top to bottom. All the packages you need to install, what you need to do with PHP, what you need to do with Apache, MariaDB for your database, all the commands, step by step, similar. It's taken from the Librenms official documentation. I've just added to it and change it so that you can do it with Arch Linux. So we're going to run through that now and see if we can get it going. So first you need to install the packages. These are all the packages you need to install. So everything there will be using and what you need for it to work. So there's quite a few there, as you can see. I've already had some there with my default installation, but it will go and install all them. The only thing you should be aware of with Arch, the current version of fping is 4.3.1, which, as you can see in Pacman, that's out of date. We're up to version 5 now. You need version 5 because you get errors. Well, I found you get errors with duplicate packets for snmpd checks. It'll run with fping this version 4.3-1. However, you'll get false positives, especially with the ISMP checking. So I will compile fping manually from version 5 at a later point. So all the packages are installed, as you can see. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So now we need to go and edit the PHP ini file while we're here. Let's go to etc. Oops, cd etc. PHP. As you can see, php.ini. So we need to enable these extensions. About halfway down. Where are they? There they are. So I need GD, MySQLi, PDO, MySQL, SNMP, and sockets. Just remove the semicolon to enable them. Also, you need to define your default date and time zone here. So I'll put mine, which is Australia/Brisbane. Again, you can check the php.net website for the syntax of your region and the specific syntax for that. So we Control X, save that. So that bit's done. Next up is the default database. Now, Librenms with the default database settings does all this. However, in Arch, you need to create the default database first before you can do anything else. Otherwise, it won't work. You'll get errors. So we need to run this command first. Again, these all run as root. Everything I'm doing here to make it simple, so you won't get any issues with permission. Right, so that's installed. So now we need to add the Librenms user. So let's add that. Right, beautiful. Now we want to go to cd/opt. Oh, I forgot to enable MariaDB, so let's enable it. And then we need to start it. Beautiful. So now we go to cd/opt. Beautiful. Then we clone it. This will pull the files from Librenms GitHub. Away it goes. Right. Going well. It'll take a while. This is quite big. It's well over 100 megs, I think, if I remember correctly. So next thing will be to get the PHP dependencies installed. This is really important because without all the PHP dependencies sorted, Librenms, you'll encounter errors down the track. So this is crucial that this goes through without any errors. If you see errors at this point, you need to fix them. Otherwise, you'll be in a world of hurt later down the track. Once you think you've got everything up and going, you'll get these weird errors. So that's the next fun bit. Yeah, I love like Arch Linux. It's the best. I just wish they'd have more instructions. But if you ever get stuck with Arch Linux, the Arch Wiki is one of the best wikis on the internet. You can solve so many problems, not just for Arch-based distros, but any distros. It gives you heaps of information. It's fantastic. Always look at it. Alright, that's done. So now we need to set the permissions. So let's get all this. This is just getting the directories to the correct libre permissions. Again, this is important. You get this right. If you haven't got any of this right, it'll tell you when it does the validation at the end. And it tells you how to fix it as well if they're not quite correct. Again, this will vary from distro. Now we do this is where we super use them to Librenms user. So make sure that happens. As you can see, it's changed to Librenms user. And we need to do this, copy the scripts. And then this will go through and check all your PHP dependencies and go and pull them what you need. If there's errors, you should see all green coming up soon. If it bombs out with red and gives you an error, you need to go and fix it. Normally there'll be a module missing in the PHP ini file you need to enable, or something similar, but it normally tells you where to go to do that. So never fear, you can always find out what's happening. And with any issues, once this is running, always look at your log files, your librenms.log file and the Apache log file. Now I'm going to use Apache for this. You can use Nginx if you want. It's just personal preference, but I've got virtual hosts set up with Apache. I prefer Apache, but any other one will work as well. So it's going through, getting all the PHP sorted. When this finishes, don't forget to exit out of Librenms user, otherwise you'll get stuck. Don't worry about the deprecation notice. That's just distro specific, but that may not come up on yours. Right, successful. There we go, exit. Now we're back into the root, which is good. So now we're going to look at the. Just need to alter one of the two things in the MariaDB setup. So it wants us to, within the MySQL section, add these two parameters, which we're going to do. you shouldn't have to change anything else in here. So fix that up, save that, and we need to restart the service. And needless to say, I'm using a systemd. If you're running an OpenRC type or an rc.d type situation, these instructions would be different, but I know systemd has its admirers and its haters, but I actually like systemd. It's quite good. It's robust and it's scalable as well. And I always check the status of the service to make sure it doesn't bomb out, which it hasn't. She's running, as you can see there. Beautiful. Clear the screen, get a bit more room. Now we set up the actual Librenms database now. So we log into MySQL and we just add all these commands line by line. Again, make sure it says successful at the end of each one. It says query OK, beautiful. I can copy that. And again, these are all taken from the official Librenms documentation, so that's no different to the original document. Okay, we've done that. Going well. Now we do the PHPFM, which does the sockets, as you can see further down. So we need to nano the Apache httpd conf file. So let's go and do that. We need to enable these modules here. So as you can see, Apache's got a crap load of modules, so you have to search for them. So the first one is modules. If you don't enable these modules, you'll get errors when you first go to try to run it and validate it. It'll bomb out. So it'll tell you if you haven't got them enabled. There's the first one, proxy module. And then we need the FCGI enabled as well. So I'll just take the hash away, and then this isn't listed in the official documentation, however, you will need this enabled, so we do it now. Again, I found this out just by doing it myself, and this is not referenced in the official documentation, just something which is probably needed in the official documentation, but if you don't enable it now, you will have to do it at a later point because it won't validate the install when you go to do the web install later on. There it is, so undo that one, save that. Beautiful. Now we're going to create the default PHP FPM content. Now I'm going to create a separate specific Librenms FPM configuration. You don't have to, but I like to do this just in case some other program uses the default configuration. So let's edit the PHP FPM conf file. No, new file, that should... No, it doesn't exist, that's right. That's why we have to create it. So we copy all this in there. Paste that. There you go, save that. Beautiful. Now we need to make Apache look for that configuration file, so we need to edit the Apache file again, which you can do from there, and include this at the bottom of the configuration file. So let's go page down all the way to the bottom, and paste it down the bottom. Include config box. Save that. Right. So now we're going to create the Librenms specific PHP FPM configuration. So we need to copy the generic file. So we're going to do that. We're going to edit it. Now I'm using Nano here in my distribution, but you can use anything, Elvis, Vi, Pico, whatever takes your fancy. So we're going to change www to Librenms. Again, you don't have to do this, but I prefer to run a separate configuration, same as you do for Cacti, or just to keep everything separated. User and There it is, user and group. As you can see here, we have to change the Librenms. Librenms. And you need to change the unique name, which is here. And what we do is now what you put here, it has to be the same when we do the Apache configuration. So make sure you get this right. Run PHP Libsoc. Beautiful. Save that. Then we're going to configure Apache now. So we're going to create a virtual host, which you won't be able to create an alias in Apache. If you like doing alias over virtual host, you need a virtual host because it will not run if you don't have a virtual host there. So you have to create a virtual host configuration file in Apache for this to work. So we're going to create the specific Libre Apache config, and then we're going to copy all this, taking note that that socket file there needs to be the same one we just created, which it is, which is run PHPFM Librenms.soc. And I'm keeping the document root as default. Arch does come with a AUR package for Librenms, however, again, you need to do a lot more for it to work, and it also changes the installation folder, which I'm not a big fan of. It needs a bit of work, the AUR package, but I'm keeping everything as default as I can, which I like to do. Save that. Now we need to add that to the Apache global configuration. Make sure it knows about it. So again, scroll all the way to the bottom and include it in the conf file. Save that. Right, now we need to enable these services. Now this is about a critical point here. When you enable them and start them, you need to check the status of them to make sure they haven't failed. If they've failed, you need to go and fix it. You can't proceed. So let's go to status and see if there's an error, which there is. So I've done something wrong here. So what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Cannot load module. There's a module which can't load there somewhere. Mod proxy connect. Ooh, did I do the wrong one? Hang on. Let's go to, see, this is what you have to do. You buggered something up. What module? Did I do the wrong module? Hang on. Let's go back up here. What module did I get wrong? Do the wrong module. I did do the wrong module. Oh, there it is. Proxy module, mod proxy. I did. I unticked the wrong one. Look at that. See? Wasn't paying attention, was I? Alright, let's save that. See? Easy fix. Now we need to restart it. Now we'll see if we got that going. Status. And look, she's running, see? It's important you go and check. That was just me being too quick. So now we need to enable the PHP FPM. So let's go and do that. And then start it. Again, check, once you start it, check the status, make sure it hasn't bounced. It shouldn't, because it's good. Alright, beautiful. Now we need to configure snmpd. So we need to make the directory. Again, Arch doesn't do this by default when you install the NetSNP package. You need to go and do this yourself. Again, you can check the Arch wiki for instructions on installing snmpd for Arch. So we copy the default config over and we edit it. And we need to change the random string here, which is your community name, to something. I call mine public. You can use anything. You can be community, it can be your name, it can be whatever. I always use public. And I also like to do the hardware detection bits. Oh, manufacturer serial. Save that. Now we do this thing here, which I don't think is necessarily needed, but I'm following the I've kept that from the default Libre configuration documentation. Then we enable snmpd, and again, once you enable and start it, check to make sure, if I can say start right, and check the status. She's all good. Now we're going to set up a cron job for the polar. You could do this as a systemd timer interval. However, that's a bit more work involved with that, because you have to have two separate systemd services, one for the timer, one for the polar, and you enable the one on the timer, not the polar. But I'm going to keep it as cron because we installed cronny. And again, in the default documentation, it doesn't mention you have to start cronny, so cronny in Arch by default isn't started. So that's where I got stuck in my original. I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working, but again, the Arch wiki helps about cronny. You have to enable and start it. So we're going to do the config there, copy and paste. Log rotates because the logs in it, Librenms get very big, so you want to rotate them. Now we're going to enable it, and as I say, once you enable it and start it, check to make sure it's running. Which it is. Now, that's all the heavy lifting done, so now we should be able to go into the web installer. So we'll open up a new window. Now, I'm doing this from a remote machine because I'm doing this via SSH, so I use the IP address rather than localhost, which is 192.168.106/install. There we go, and this is the screen that should come up if you get errors from Apache or PHP errors, 500 internal server errors, 403 forbidden, you've got something wrong. There's a permissions problem, or it could be a PHP problem. Check the Apache log files, that is always a big help, or the Librenms log file. So we click on all the checks are done, so we go that. And these are the database credentials. These have to be the same as you put in during the installation. So if you go back up here for the MariaDB setup, we created a user Librenms, identified by password. Now obviously password, you can put whatever. You can put your own password as long as you remember what it is. I'm just doing this for simplicity. Obviously you wouldn't use password on a normal enterprise or a non-home system. But we know it's password, so let's go and put password. We'll check the credentials, which is correct, don't save that. And then we go build database, and it goes and does all the database tables and links, keys, etc., which is done. So then you click up at the top for the next bit, which is the user. Again, just remember what username you want. I'll just put password at the moment. Email can be whatever. Do we have to put one? No, I don't. Good. Right. Done. Tick. So it writes the .env file, config file. Again, if you get an error about permissions, it'll tell you how to fix it up. That may vary if you're already on it, especially if you have an existing Arch system, that may be an issue. However, if it's a brand new system like mine was a brand new installation, you shouldn't have that issue with permissions. You need to validate the install, so click validate. We log in. No, hang on, I've got a password in. That's right. Don't update. Right. Ooh, no, I forgot to do RD tool. Whoops. See? I must not copy and paste correctly. I must have truncated it because I've split the screen. So snmpd tool. Beautiful. Now refresh. Done. All okay. The first one is you just have to add a host. You need to add at least one host for the automatic discovery to start working as well. So you normally just add local host for the machine that you install Librenms on, and then it'll kick into gear from there. So that's all good. So what we do now is add service. No, not add service, sorry. Add device. So host name, we'll say local host. Community is public. Add. See, added host successfully. I'll also add my switch just for argument's sake. 168.1.239 is my smart switch. Again, I use public for across all my devices for the SNMP community. Added. That's all done. So we have a successful installation. I might maximise that now. So you can see everything there. Any issues you'll come across in the event log will be here. It takes 5 minutes for the polling to start working, so nothing's going to appear instantaneously. You know, it takes 2 polls at least for it to get into gear and get all the different services per device. So be patient. It'll start logging. You can change the web admin through global settings. I always like to change the web UI graph settings. I like to use stack graphs, so we'll enable that. Style you can change to mono, and changing mono changes the top bar to black. If any of that fails, again you've missed. There's something missing in your configuration, your PHP normally. Again, check the log files. Right. So we're done. So these are the log files to check if you encounter problems. The librenms.log file and the Apache log file. Always a great help. And that's it. You just go to librenms.localhost or whatever you set the virtual host as. Just as an appendix with fping, because Arch Linux only has the old version of fping, I compile version 5 manually from the official source, and these are the instructions of how to do it. I've added them in there so that you can easily compile it and then copy it over to your user bin so that you won't encounter issues. It gives you get false positives for ISMNP checking errors. It thinks it's down when it's not. It gives you duplicate packets, which I know it's not because you can't replicate it from the command line. So it's a known issue with the older fpings, and as soon as you update to version 5, it fixes all those weird errors in your log files. So I strongly suggest you get version 5 of fping. Unfortunately, Arch, for whatever reason, it's at least a month and a half out of date, that package. It's been flagged as out of date in the Arch package list, but just haven't updated it yet. And that's it. So that is my tutorial of how to install Librenms on Arch Linux. I'll probably do one for Observium next, because Librenms is a fork of Observium, since Observium went to a community/paid model, whereas Librenms is totally open source and free to use. And I happen to like Librenms better, to be honest with you. So that is it. I'll give you a version of my current working on my server Librenms. So I go here to librenms.com, and if you see all the ports as an example, there's my switches, and it gives you the stats there. You can go to graphs. I love the bits. It gives you all the different ports. There's 8. I've got 2 8-port switches there, as you can see. It gives you the last stats for all them, as you can see. You also got the server, which is running Arch Linux, and it gives you a plethora of information about the storage, physical memory. Now, one thing you should know with physical memory, I'm running Plasma on my server, and it does not, I've always encountered this Plasma, it does not recognize the correct usage. I'm only using about 3 or 4 gigs of RAM, not the whole lot. It's just how Arch and Plasma work. It tends to inflate the memory and how it allocates it into Plasma. So don't take any notice of that. That's normal for this type of Arch Plasma installation on my server. But everything else is quite good. It's got a UPS here. We've got input and output. As you can see, we're doing a good 240 volts, which is good. Over the last 24 hours, beautiful. And I haven't done there's the overview for the UPS. If we do all devices, if we do my smart switch, you see the overview there. Gives you stats for the network, and it's extremely powerful if you get into this, and it's well worth the install, trust me. Right, I'll end the video there. Thanks for watching. See ya.